Hi friends, Apex Legends Legacy, or Season 9 as it's also known as, is now live, and after a few issues on launch day, it seems Season 9 is now running smoothly. I've got lots of Season 9 content planned, and today I thought I'd talk you through how to use Valkyrie in Apex Legends Legacy. This Valkyrie guide should give you some tips and tricks to help you win more games with Valkyrie in Season 9. So Valkyrie, if you didn't know, is the new legend in Apex Legends Season 9, and she brings some interesting abilities to the game that have quite a high skill ceiling, and if they're not used correctly, they can make you an easy target. So I'm going to walk you through each of Valkyrie's abilities and give tips for each as we go along. Let's start by looking at Valkyrie's passive abilities. Now Valkyrie does have a few passive abilities. The main passive ability is the VTOL Jets. This is essentially a jetpack with fuel which refills over time. You press your jump button or whatever bound key you have on the PC, and this activates some jump jets which launch you into the sky. There's a fuel gauge which appears on the right of your screen, and this will show you how much fuel you have left for the active jets. Now you have two options to engage these active jets. You can either toggle or hold. With hold, you have to hold your jump button to keep the pack going. However, with toggle, you just need to initiate the jetpack, and once you do that, it will hold up the jetpacks for as long as you have fuel. You can disengage it by pressing your jump button again, and this disengages it. So those are your two options. You can go into your settings and switch between them. It's quite easy to do. For me, I like to use the toggle just because it's a bit easier, and it means I can then just toggle it and it allows me to use the tactical or look around a little easier. Some general comments around this passive ability is that you have a maximum duration of 7 seconds, and fuel will only start to refill after 8 seconds when you've released the jetpack. And in terms of how long it takes to refill, it takes about 10 seconds to refuel from empty. One thing you need to take note of is that the jetpacks in midair won't allow you to use any weapons, apart from your tactical. However, if you're in the sky and you release the jetpacks, after a short pause, you will be able to bring out your weapon while you're dropping back to the ground. And there's about a 1 second delay before you pull out your weapon when you're dropping back towards the ground. And you'll see a little hand animation, kind of like what Octane does when he finishes his stim. And that's your indicator for when you're about to pull out your weapon after finishing using the VTOL Jets. Now a few tips around using this passive. You can actually use it like a double jump to boost you onto buildings, and you can even take it after using a jump pad, so you get a boost on top of your double jump. Another good tip is that you can slide and then jump into the boost, and this gives you a little propulsion forward and kind of acts like a boost forward, almost like a double jump from the ground. And in terms of strategy or tactics to make use of this passive, it's actually quite a good flanking tool, and it lets you get over, above and even around enemies, and it's also a great way to survey the area to see where enemies are. One thing you do need to be careful of though is to try not to hover in midair for too long. Unlike Horizon, you won't be able to have your weapon out, so you need to be strafing as you rise up, and try to only rise straight up if you're getting on top of a building or if you're behind cover and it's safe to do so. Like I said, you rise up quite slowly, so if an enemy is looking straight at you while you're doing this, you're going to be quite an easy target to shoot, so it's just something to be aware of. Now Valkyrie's second passive is that she has a jet fighter HUD, and it appears while you're launching out of the dropship and even when you're skydiving from jump towers or even using her ultimate. Basically, once it's active, you'll see it on your screen and you get these kind of green indicators which show you exactly where the enemy teams are. This is a really useful passive that lets you see where teams are landing and which direction they're going in. This can be useful not just out of the dropship, but even when you're using jump towers or even her ultimate, you can use it while you're repositioning to see where the enemy teams are and also to tell if there are any enemy teams in the location that you're moving to. The added bonus is that your teammates will also be able to see the same indicators you can see for where the enemy teams are. Valkyrie is also a recon legend, so her final passive ability is the recon ability to scan beacons. I feel like a lot of people haven't realised this yet because her abilities seem quite offensive, and I guess they just don't realise that she can scan beacons. So basically, don't forget to scan those beacons when you're playing as Valkyrie. So that's Valkyrie's passive. Now let's look at Valkyrie's tactical ability, the Missile Swarm. With this ability, you launch 12 missiles into a 4x3 array, and it deals damage but also stuns the enemy. If a legend gets hit, the first missile deals 25 damage, but then every subsequent missile only does 3 damage. Some key things to take note of here is that you need ample vertical clearance to use it, meaning you can't use it on interior spaces with low ceilings. It also can't be used if you're facing too close to a wall or another object. It just won't activate, so make sure you're aware of this in case you're trying to activate the tactical. The main strategic thinking with this tactical is to not see it as a way to deal damage. See it more of a tool to zone enemies into areas you want them to move into, but also to stun enemies, which can give you time to push as a team. The one time it could be useful to deal damage is if you have already done a lot of damage to someone and perhaps they drop behind cover, so you haven't been able to finish them off. What you can do is you can launch yourself into the sky using the passive, and then activate the tactical, and that 25 damage it would do is normally just about enough to finish off an enemy. And like I said, this works quite well with her passive, so you can combine the tactical and the passive to form quite a nice combo where you're launching the tactical from an aerial position. So that's Valkyrie's tactical, and that just leaves Valkyrie's ultimate ability, the Skyward Dive. You can launch into the air and skydive. The cool thing is allies can also hook into the system and join you on your skydive. It's actually a really cool system that can help you get far away in tricky situations, especially if you're being pushed hard, but it's also quite a useful tool to see where other enemy teams are, and even if the ring is closing in, it's a good way to get back into the zone quickly and easily with your whole team. Now in terms of the stats around this ability, it charges up over 2 seconds before launching into the air, so when you activate the ultimate, there'll be a charge up time you need to make yourself aware of. Also, if Valkyrie takes damage during this charge up time, the ultimate is cancelled and you're only left with 75% of it, and this also applies if you cancel the ultimate. So put simply, make sure you're in a safe place and you're not going to be shot at and you don't need to cancel it before using the ultimate. Another thing to note is that you need vertical clearance to be able to fly off. So if there's an obstacle such as a roof or a ceiling above you, then you won't be able to activate the ultimate. Like I said, you need to be careful when using this ultimate, because those 2 seconds can feel like a very long time if an enemy is looking straight at you and shooting at you. On top of this, while you're charging your ultimate, you can look around, but you can't actually move or shoot any weapons, so you really are vulnerable while you're waiting for it to charge. So you need to make sure you've got a good amount of cover and you have enough time to activate the ability before you hit this ultimate. Once you start rising, you do go up fairly fast, and I found that people have found it quite hard to hit you while you rise, although maybe not so much in the higher tier lobbies. So because of this, you don't need to get too far away from enemy teams, you just need to make sure you can find enough cover to protect you while you charge up and as you rise into the air. Another great thing about this ability, as I said, is that your teammates can attach onto you while you charge. You see, when you hit your ultimate button, it charges, but then you can press your activation button, which for me is my fire button on my controller, to actually activate the ultimate, and you still have the ability to cancel it before you do that. It also gives you time to wait for your teammates to join you. They simply walk up to you and press their action button. Again, for me on my controller, it's the X button, and that will then attach you to Valkyrie, which means then when Valkyrie presses her trigger button to launch into the sky, she'll take her teammates with her. Like I said, this is a really great positioning tool, especially if the ring is moving in and you need to get out of it. But also, if there are a few enemy teams around and you want to reposition, perhaps you want to take the high ground, this is a really great way to do it. Oh yes, and don't forget, when you're using the ultimate, her passive HUD where she can see where enemies are, as well as her teammates, will come into effect, so it's also quite a good way to scout out the surrounding areas and see how many enemy teams are around. So those are Valkyrie's abilities, with a few tips on how to get the best out of them. In terms of what type of gameplay you want to use for Valkyrie, she's a really good repositioning legend, and she's really good to give intel on where teams are, as well as help herself and the team reposition to high ground, and even flank enemies. Like I've said a few times, try to be careful when you're using her abilities. They can feel quite slow to activate, and you'll be in trouble if you're not careful when you're using them. So the key thing with Valkyrie is to use cover while using her abilities. And that's my guide on how to use Valkyrie in Season 9. I'm sure as the meta evolves, we'll learn new things about how to use Valkyrie, and I'll try my best to share them with you so you stay up to date on how to get the best from Valkyrie. Good luck on your journey in Apex Legends Season 9. I've got so much more content coming, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Come join our community of friends if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.